Welcome to the Rookie Reset. My name is Andrea Fitzgerald, and I'm going to be your host this evening. Now, you may be wondering, what the heck is a Rookie Reset? Well, friends, it would be evenings just like this, except your girl would be stressed the hell out because I could not manage my classroom, or quite frankly, I couldn't figure out this whole teaching thing. So, what we do here on the Rookie Reset is provide you with practical tools, tips, and resources to help you stay in the game. I am the PD in your building, I'm the professional learning that you need. So, each week we hope to provide you practical tips because oftentimes new teachers quit too soon because they are not getting the support they need. So, that's what we hope to do for you here is provide you with practical tools, tips, and strategies to help you stay in the game. Simple, easy to implement. That's what we're all about right here. So today, friends, we are going to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart. I just love this, and it is very simple. Are the kids in the car? Are the kids in the car? Now, you may be wondering, what the heck am I talking about? Are the kids in the car? We're talking about checks for understanding. And as I was thinking about this concept, I thought about several years ago I was on a walkthrough with Allison Leslie. She was at the time she was the director, I think, of instructional support when I was an instruction partner. And she was telling me this story. One time she went with her dad. They were going on a road trip, or they were going somewhere. They go in the store. Uh, Allie starts playing around with some nuts, some bolts, or something like that. So she's over there playing with some nuts and bolts, and her dad he goes back to the car, he's pumping the gas, he gets in the car, he drives off. And as he is driving, he looks in the back seat, he says, "Oh, wait a minute. My baby ain't in the back seat." So he had driven off thinking that his kid was in the back car. Back car. So he had to go back and get the kid. But oftentimes, just like her dad, hopped in the car, thought the kid was in there. That's how my class used to be, y'all. Because I would be driving in my lessons, I'd be teaching, and you know what I say to kids? I say, "Y'all understand? Everybody good? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Everybody understand?" And you know what they would say? Miss Fitzgerald, I understand. But them kids didn't understand because I get to the end of the lesson and be like, "Dang, 2 out of 30 got it today." Either what would happen is I would end up walking around saying the same thing over and over. So the kids they wanted to be here. And so checks for understanding is very critical to you as an educator. It is probably one of the most important things to help you ensure that your kids are getting it. They say a good driver checks their rearview mirror every 2 to 3 minutes, and the same is true for you as a teacher. You want to be checking every so often to make sure your kids in the car. Hey, wait a minute, y'all with me? Where we going? We good? You still rolling with me? So checks for understanding. It is you really want to maintain and progress monitor. Are the kids still staying with me? Because what you don't want to happen is you get to the end of the lesson, just like I did, two out of 30 had it. And I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute, what happened? I thought I said everybody understand. And you said you did, but they didn't understand." So we want to be gathering physical evidence of what is it that my students really, really know. And that was one of the most critical pieces that Miss Webb, she was our assistant principal when I was a teacher. That was one of the most critical pieces she ever taught me. We went to PD after school, and she was like, "Yeah, checks for understanding. You got to be checking every so often." So you don't want to wait to the end of the lesson. So I just have a couple things to consider as you think about checks for understanding. So again, you want to have intentional checkpoints. If we drive in a car, am I gonna get gas in Texas? Am I gonna get gas on the when I'm 30 miles in, when I'm 20 miles in? So we really want to be having some intentional checkpoints throughout the lesson to monitor the progress. Like, hey, how we really doing here? How we really doing? And see our students really mastering what we are exploring throughout the lesson. You also, as I said, you want to gather physical evidence of what they know. So I have no knock on the knock if you agree. Thumbs up, thumbs down, nothing wrong with those. But the thing about it is we really don't gather evidence of what our students are thinking. So what my go-to, what I really loved was either some type of discussion or like the whiteboards, because I could physically see what it was that my students knew. I could see like, oh, this is what they're thinking. They could explain to me, oh, I did this, Miss Fisher, I approached it this way, da da da. But you get a lot of evidence from seeing students work. So that's why I really love the whiteboards. I thought they were really cool. And I know something in that book, Building Thinking Classrooms, they have the vertical non-permanent white surfaces. You can gather a ton of evidence from that. So you want to get physical evidence of what they know. Everybody to understand is not a check for understanding, because they're gonna tell you they agree, y'all. They're gonna say they understand. So you just want to keep that in mind. So another thing to consider is, as I said before, is that at the end of the lesson on an assessment, it is entirely too late. It's too late. Every 2 to 3 minutes, what are those checkpoints throughout the lesson? So I know for me, every time we transitioned as the problems got more complex, I had a check for understanding. So if, for instance, if we starting with solving multi-step equations, we start off with distributed property, I'm gonna have a check for understanding right after we close that loop on distributed property. As we build, oh, wait a minute, now we add on the distributed property with some combining like terms, it's gonna be a check right after that. So very intentional to be clear on like where are these checkpoints going to be throughout the lesson, because what you don't want to happen is, like, for instance, let's go back to this example that I'm talking about. We do the distributed property, we add the distributed property with the combining like terms. Then we say, okay, wait a minute, now it's on equation with variables on both sides, and we're doing all of that together. And I have not gathered any evidence. Are you getting each piece as it gets more complex? So those are just some things to think about. You want to think about, as this concept gets more complex, where am I going to check for mastery throughout? Because you don't want to wait to the end. Because can you imagine do equations, variables on both sides, and some of them problems, they can get real sticky. You threw some fractions in there, you done did this, you done did that, and you haven't been able to check along the way to see where the hiccups are coming up. So I want to give you just a few 5 tips to help you plan, because this is the thing that I want you to think about when checks my understanding. These are not going to miraculously come out the air, right? Like going into a lesson, be like, all right, I'm just going to check my understanding today. You have to be intentional about them. So you really want to plan for these intentional checks before you even go into that lesson. All right. So if you are planning for checks for understanding, the first thing that you want to consider is, what is the goal or key understanding of that lesson? One of the best places to get that is the standards, y'all. The standards, they tell you, ELA, math, it don't matter. The standards, they tell you everything. RTFS, that thing. And then the next thing is, as you think about that goal. So for instance, if I'm solving equations, or multi-step equations, I might say, wait a minute, where are those key checkpoints? I just kind of talked about those. Like, okay, we doing multi-step equations, that part right there, when we start off with that distributed property, I might need to have me a check after that to make sure the key is in the vehicle. Or now they add on the combining like terms. Up, might have to put a check right there. So just as they're working, think about, what are those intentional checkpoints that I need the skills that I really want them to know, and where am I going to assess those in the lesson? So really think about when and where. Where are they going to be? That are really going to help you to arrive at that destination. So if I'm going to Jamaica, you'd be like, wait a minute, we're going to have to we're going to switch planes when we get to Atlanta, and then we may have to refuel when we get to somewhere else. But you really want to think about those. The next thing is, you want to think about, how am I going to check? So that might be, I'm going to use whiteboards. I'm going to ask a question here. I'm going to have a writing prompt. I'm going to have a think, pair, share. I'm going to have them do a discussion. I'm going to, like, what is it? How am I going to check this? As I told you before, the whiteboards were my jam in a math class, because you can gather so much evidence from seeing students work. And also with those, students would hold them up, and so I could do a quick assessment, and that will also tell me, like, okay, I'm gonna have to pull these 4 or 5 in a small group, And these over here, they ready to move on to the next thing. Or these, I see I got 30 kids. I might say, okay, I see 24 out of 30 got it. So these six, I can figure out where do they need support, or if those are ready to move on. But it just gives you physical evidence of what they know. So how are you going to check? And really, again, you want to be thinking about, I need to see evidence of what they know. Everyone, they say, does everyone understand? They going y'all, I'm telling you, they gonna tell you yes. If anybody's had the experience, drop it in the chat. Like, you say, does everybody understand? They gonna respond. They gonna say, yeah, Miss Fisher, I got it. They gonna say that. All right, the next thing is, you want to think about, after you say how you're going to check, think about, what is it that I'm looking for. So what is it that I'm looking for? Because not only do we want to think about what strategy am I going to use, but what am I going to be looking for from students to let me know that they have mastered this. So you almost want to identify that criteria for success. Like, what lets you know that, okay, my kid's good here, they got this part. Going back to the equations, like, seeing them being able to utilize that distributed property effectively and be able to explain the properties, not just solve the process, be like, okay, I use the addition property of equality, and that listen, they're justifying, they're explaining, I'm making this decision because of that, you know. But that to me was evidence of, okay, you got it. And especially, like, I'm thinking distributed property, the negatives, like, sometimes I don't know the negatives, it's still throw me off. And I do math every day, but that would let me know, okay, you in a good place, because I done threw a remix on this check for understanding, and you good. So I know you got that part. Like, I might say, okay, well, I know they can do distributed property, but it may sometimes be a little off when they use a negative. So, my checks for understanding usually was something like, I was getting like the one that I knew that would trick them up, that would let me know, like, okay, I know they got it. But you want to think about what it is that you're looking for. The next thing is, you want to anticipate, where could the car crash. So if we're thinking about, we're going to our destination, we want to identify, okay, what misconceptions could pop up? Like, where my students have challenges, even if you're doing the math, or, reading through your lesson, my ELA people, whatever you're doing, and you be like, ooh, I had some challenges here. My students might have some challenges here. Or different places. Like, I know, like I talked about before, I know with distributed property, that sometimes the negatives, they throw the people off. They throw people off. And especially if it's like 20 minus minus 2 times the quantity of like 4x plus 7, that negative right there, it could be a little tricky for the people. So just keeping those things in mind, like, what are those places that might be a little sticky, and what's my plan to adjust? Like, what's my plan to adjust for those? So you want to think about, like, how am I going to support my students if they have this challenge? I know, for instance, with the distributed property, oftentimes, like, some students, they may not, the parentheses sometimes were confusing, but you know what they did? Understand the tabular method, the area model. So it made it make more sense. So just having those, like, those back pocket ways to support students with getting to some of those grade level concepts. So just think about those. And oftentimes, like, I think also that's why it's also important, especially in math, to think about, like, skills that students have learned before, because they could tell you why they may have a misconception or something that they may not understand, and using some of that prior knowledge to kind of connect those dots for them. But that is it, y'all. So just to recap, in terms of, how do you plan for check understanding, identifying what's the goal or key understanding of the lesson, reverse engineer those key checkpoints that are going to get you to that destination. Next, how are you going to check? So what strategy am I going to utilize to check it? And then, what are you going to be looking for when you are checking? And also anticipate where the car could crash. So what are those misconceptions that could come up, and how will I adjust? So yes, 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 check, check, check. Are the kids in the car? Are the kids in the car, y'all? Yes, probably one of the most important skills of being a great teacher. And again, you want to check these every 2 to 3 minutes because I'm telling y'all, they're gonna say, does everybody understand? They're gonna say yes. So yes, check for understanding. CFUs, are the kids in the car? Are the kids in the car? And I'll close it out with this. So something that I often tell people, I'll close out with this. So I remember my first year, y'all. I used to be up there teaching like my hair was on fire. I promise. Listen, I thought I was teaching like the preacher in church. And I'd get to the end of that lesson, and it would be like 2 out of 30. 2 out of 30 kids had it. And I used to say to myself, I say, well, dang, I say, were we in the same conversation? Has that ever happened to anybody? Say, were we in the same conversation? Or y'all remember that movie, Men in Black, and they put the eraser up, that little thing, they'd be like, bing, and it was just like everything was gone. Yeah, I was like, we weren't in the same class today because I felt like I was talking. Maybe you didn't. I don't know if you heard me well. But anyways, the point was that the reason that they were not getting is because I was not checked for understanding. And that's what happens when we're not monitoring along the way, when we're not checking to see if the kid's in the vehicle, then yeah, you can end up being in the lesson 2 out of 24, 2 out of 30 that experience because we are not checking and monitoring for understanding. So just want to keep that in mind. But thank y'all for tuning in. We'll be back next week. I ain't gonna tell y'all I'll be here right at 5:15. It's between 5:15 and 5:45. We'll be up in this thing. Somewhere in that range, guys. We'll be here. But we are remixing the Ricky Reset and also Mental Push Up Monday. Check that out. But we're starting to bring guests. We want to hear from other people that that are crushing it in the game because yes, I think I have a lot of expertise, but I also believe that there are so many people that can add value. Um, and and just like every time I talk to the people, I just feel like I learn so much more to help me grow as a human being and also as educator. So we're gonna be bringing guests. We got some really exciting guests coming soon. We got Akeisha Sai coming on at the end of November, I think. Is it November? Yes, November 28th, I think. And we got Tamira Malone who's coming talking about culture responsive teaching the brain. It's gonna be lit, y'all. It's going to be lit. So please come back and check us out. We'll be here somewhere in the time. And as you go this week, I want you to keep that rookie state of mind. Well, what's that, Fitz? I want you to remember to level up is in the losses. Problems are a privilege. And yes, you might be new to this, but I know you're true to this because you're in this very moment. And I believe in each one of you. So let's get out there this week and let's do those rookie reset push-ups. I believe in each one of you. But we'll be back next week. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. And I'm gone. Wait a minute. Let me make sure we off this thing. All right.